Part 1, The Melvin's Arrival, Southampton, Tuesday, April 9th. The train from London pulled slowly into Southampton in the late afternoon, its motion easing into a gradual stop as the golden light of day began to soften into evening, casting long shadows across the platform and giving everything beyond the windows a slightly blurred, almost unreal quality. Steam drifted thickly past the glass, curling and shifting in pale clouds that obscured the view outside, turning the station into little more than shapes in movement. Connor leaned forward, wiping a small circle in the fogged window with his sleeve before pressing his face close to the glass, determined to see clearly. "Is that the ocean?" he asked, his voice full of anticipation. Tyler leaned over him, following his line of sight with an amused expression. "That's the station," he said. "You'll know the ocean when you see it." Connor frowned, still staring out. "It looks like smoke." "That's because it is smoke," Tyler replied. Cory was already on his feet before the train had fully stopped, moving with quiet urgency as he reached for their bags, his focus fixed entirely on what came next. "Gather your things," he said, lifting one without hesitation. "Stay close when we step out." Ryan closed his book carefully, marking his place without thinking, and stood with the same calm readiness he always carried, while Tyler stretched as he rose, shaking off the stiffness of the journey. "You say that like we're going to vanish the moment we arrive," Tyler remarked, glancing toward Cory. "We might," Cory replied simply. Tyler grinned. "We won't." The doors opened, and the world rushed in all at once. Sound hit them first, voices overlapping, porters shouting directions, boots striking the platform in quick, heavy rhythms, all blending into a constant noise that filled the air and left no room for silence. Connor instinctively reached for Cory's sleeve the moment they stepped down, gripping it without hesitation. Cory didn't react outwardly, but he shifted his hold on the bags just enough to ensure he wouldn't lose him in the crowd. They stepped onto the platform together, moving as a unit even as the crowd pressed around them. At the front was Cory Melvin, 19 years old, already carrying more responsibility than anyone his age should have been asked to bear, his posture steady despite it. At his side moved Tyler Melvin, 14 years old, confidence radiating from him even when it stretched slightly beyond reality. Just behind them walked Ryan Melvin, 11 years old, quiet and observant, his attention fixed on everything others overlooked. And closest of all, holding on tightly and taking in every sight at once, was Connor Melvin, 9 years old, energy contained only by the hand he refused to let go of. "Stay together," Cory said, his voice cutting clearly through the noise. "We are together," Tyler replied immediately. "Stay close together," Connor tightened his grip. "I am close." They moved through the station and out into the streets of Southampton, following the steady current of travelers that flowed toward the docks, each step carrying them further from the train and closer to something much larger waiting ahead. The air changed as soon as they stepped outside, carrying with it a mix of salt, smoke, and something metallic that lingered faintly at the back of the throat. Connor noticed it first, wrinkling his nose slightly. "It smells strange." "That's the sea," Tyler said. "That's everything," Ryan corrected quietly, his tone thoughtful rather than dismissive. They had not intended to see the ship that evening, having planned only to arrive, settle, and prepare for the next day, but as they turned down a street that sloped gently toward the docks, Connor stopped. Cory turned immediately. "What is it?" Connor didn't answer, he simply raised his hand and pointed. At first, it was only a shape, dark and indistinct against the fading sky, not fully visible, not fully clear, but rising above the rooftops, far larger than anything around it, was something that could not be mistaken for anything else. "The ship!" Tyler let out a low whistle, the sound quieter than usual, edged with something close to awe. "All right," Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly, studying it with careful attention. "It's larger than I expected," he said. "That's because you expected wrong," Tyler replied. "I expected based on available information." "Well, the information failed you." Connor stepped forward slowly, his eyes still fixed on the distant shape. "That's what we're going on?" he asked. "Yes," Cory said. Connor turned to him, searching his face. "All of it?" "Yes, all of it." For a moment, they stood there in silence, the noise of the street fading into the background as the reality of it settled over them. Even Tyler said nothing. Finally, Tyler spoke again, quieter now. "We're not missing that." Cory allowed himself the faintest smile. "No," he said, "we're not." The room in the hotel was small, too small for 4 boys and everything they carried, but it was all they could afford for the night. A single lamp cast a warm, uneven glow across worn wallpaper. Two narrow beds, one chair, and a scattering of suitcases filled the space. Outside, faint sounds from the docks drifted in voices, carts, the distant echo of something much larger waiting in the dark. Tomorrow, they would board the ship. Cory stood by the small table, carefully folding what remained of their clothes. Each movement was deliberate, controlled. "We leave early," he said, "so get your things in order tonight." Tyler sprawled across one of the beds, tossed an arm behind his head. "They won't leave without us," he said with a grin. "We've got tickets, don't we?" Cory didn't look up. "That's not the point." "It's a very large point," Tyler shot back. "Hard to miss, really." From the floor near the window, Ryan turned a page in his book, not even glancing up. "They've boarded over 2,000 people before us," he said quietly. "Statistically, we are very easy to miss." Tyler blinked. "You could have just let me have that." Connor, who had been attempting to bounce a small ball against the wall, missed his catch entirely. The ball struck the floor, rolled under Cory's feet, and stopped. "Connor," Cory said, still calm but firmer now, "not in here." Connor froze, then slowly stepped forward, retrieving the ball like it might betray him. "Sorry," he muttered. There was a pause. Then, "Can I just do it once more?" "No, just one." "No." Connor hesitated. Then gently tossed it up in the air and caught it instead. Cory exhaled. "That's acceptable." Tyler sat up suddenly. "You know," he said, pointing at Cory, "you've been acting like a 40-year-old man all week." "I'm 19, exactly." "Tragic." Cory finally looked at him. "Someone has to make sure we get on that ship." Tyler swung his legs off the bed, standing now, a little more serious. "And we will," he said. "You've done everything right, sold the house, got the tickets, got us here." He shrugged, softer now. "You don't have to carry all of it tonight." For a moment, Cory didn't respond. Ryan closed his book. "He won't stop," Ryan said quietly. "Not until we're somewhere stable again." Cory gave the faintest hint of a smile. "Correct." Connor suddenly moved across the room and wrapped his arms around Cory without warning. Cory stiffened slightly, then relaxed. "We're going to America," Connor said into his coat. "That's far." "Yes," Cory said. "Do they play football there?" Tyler laughed. "Oh, they'll learn." Ryan stood and moved to the window, looking out into the night. "The ship leaves at noon," he said, "but it's already there." Tyler joined him, peering out. "Can you see it?" Ryan nodded slightly, not clearly, but "It's there." Connor rushed over, trying to see past them. "I wanna see." "You're too short," Tyler said. "I am not." "You objectively are." Cory watched them, Tyler leaning out, Connor pushing forward, Ryan steady between them. For a moment, the weight he carried seemed to ease, not gone, but shared. "All right," Cory said, clapping his hands once. "Enough, sleep." Groans followed immediately. "We're not tired," Tyler said. "I am," Ryan replied. "I'm not." Connor added. "You will be," Cory said, already moving toward the lamp. As the light dimmed and the room settled, the sounds of the harbor grew clearer. Somewhere out there was their future, uncertain, vast, unforgiving. But they wouldn't face it alone. In the darkness, Connor's voice whispered, "Cory? Yes? Don't let them leave without us." A pause. "I won't." Part 2, Titanic, Southampton, Wednesday, April 10th. Morning came far too quickly, as though the night had barely settled before it was already being pushed aside by the restless energy of the docks, and when the Melvin brothers arrived, the entire harbor was alive with movement, crowds pressing forward in overlapping waves, voices rising and colliding with one another, and trunks, cases, and bundles being carried in every direction beneath the shadow of something so vast it seemed to dominate not just the skyline, but the moment itself. The ship was no longer something glimpsed in the distance or imagined in the dark, it stood before them in full, undeniable scale, immense and overwhelming in a way that made everything else feel suddenly smaller. Connor slowed, then stopped entirely, his eyes lifting as far as they could go. "It's bigger in the daytime," he said, his voice filled with a kind of quiet disbelief. "Yes," Cory answered, without slowing his own pace, his tone steady but firm. "Keep moving." They joined the line for second-class passengers, where they were immediately absorbed into the crowd, families clustered together, travelers adjusting their belongings, and porters calling out instructions that seemed to echo from every direction at once. Cory held the tickets firmly in his hand, his grip just tight enough to betray the importance of what they represented, while Tyler leaned slightly to one side, trying to see past the people ahead of them. "How long do you think this will take?" Tyler asked, impatience already slipping into his voice. "As long as it takes," Cory replied without looking at him. Tyler exhaled. "That's not helpful." "It's accurate." Ryan stood quietly between them, his gaze fixed ahead as he watched the process unfold with careful attention. Documents examined, names asked, brief exchanges, and then people moving forward one by one. "They're verifying everyone," he said after a moment. "Yes," Cory confirmed. "Good," Ryan added, as though that settled something important. Tyler turned his head toward him, raising an eyebrow. "You want this to take longer?" "I want it to go correctly," Ryan replied, calm as ever. Connor shifted from foot to foot beside them, his energy contained but not diminished, the ball still in his hands as if it grounded him. "Can I see the tickets?" he asked, looking up at Cory. "No," Cory said immediately. Connor frowned. "Why?" "Because if you drop them," Cory replied, glancing down at him briefly, "we're not getting on the ship." Connor instantly clasped his hands behind his back, hiding the ball as if that alone proved responsibility. "I won't drop them." "No," Cory repeated, unmoved. The line advanced slowly, step by step, the distance between them and the gangway shrinking with each passing minute, until at last they reached the front, where a uniformed man stood checking documents with efficient detachment, barely lifting his eyes as he spoke. "Tickets." Cory stepped forward, and for the first time there was the slightest tightening in his hand before he passed them over. The man glanced at them briefly. "For second class." His eyes lifted just enough to take in the group before him. "You're in charge?" "Yes," Cory said. "Age?" 19. The man gave a small nod, then flipped his gaze toward the others. "Brothers?" "Yes." Tyler stepped forward slightly, offering a confident nod as though to reinforce the answer, while Connor attempted the same but ended up simply staring, unsure what expression he was supposed to have, and Ryan remained still and silent, his presence quiet but certain. The man stamped the tickets with a sharp, decisive motion. "Proceed." For a moment, none of them moved, as though the word itself needed to settle before it could be acted upon. Then Cory took the tickets back. "We're going," Connor whispered, his voice somewhere between excitement and disbelief. "Yes," Cory said. They stepped forward together, moving onto the gangway, where the world shifted once again as the ground beneath them became something temporary, suspended between where they had been and where they were going. With every step upward, the ship seemed to rise around them, its scale becoming more real, more enclosing, while the noise of the docks began to fall away behind them, replaced by something deeper and more contained. Connor glanced down for just a moment at the water far below. "Don't look down," Tyler said immediately. "I wasn't." "You were." "I wasn't." "You absolutely were." "Enough," Cory said, cutting through it before it could continue. About halfway up, Tyler slowed slightly, turning his head to look back over the crowd, the docks, the entire scene they were leaving behind. "We're really leaving," he said, quieter now. Cory didn't stop walking. "Yes." Ryan turned his head once as well, his gaze moving across the harbor, the people, the land itself, taking it in not with hesitation, but with understanding. Then he faced forward again, decision made. At the top of the gangway, a crew member gestured them onward. "This way, second class." Cory nodded once and led them forward without hesitation. Connor stepped into the gangway doors on sea deck first and immediately turned his eyes in every direction at once, trying to take in more than he possibly could. "We're on it," he said, his voice filled with awe. "Yes," Tyler replied, stepping beside him, his usual confidence softened just slightly. "We're on it." Cory paused, just for a moment, not long enough for any of them to notice, but long enough to feel it. They had made it. All of them. Then he moved again. "Come on," he said, his voice steady once more. "Stay together," and just like that, they moved forward into the ship, disappearing into its corridors and passageways, leaving behind the dock, the city, and everything they had known. 4 brothers, 1 decision, no turning back. The change was immediate and unmistakable the moment the 4 brothers stepped fully inside the ship, as the open air and vastness of the deck gave way to enclosed passageways where every movement seemed guided by walls, staircases, and neatly painted signs directing second-class passengers further inward and, as it soon became clear, further down. Cory took the lead without hesitation, his voice steady as he read the sign and gestured forward, already carrying both the responsibility and the bags, while the others followed in their usual formation, Tyler just behind him with restless curiosity, Ryan quieter and observant, and Connor close enough to reach Cory if needed. They reached the staircase sooner than expected, and although it was solidly built with polished wood and brass fittings that spoke of care and craftsmanship, there was something about it that made the descent feel more significant than it should have, as though each step carried them further away from the world they had just left behind. Connor leaned slightly over the railing, peering down into what seemed like an endless continuation of steps. "That goes far," he said, his voice softer now, as if the space itself demanded it. "Yes," Cory replied, already beginning the descent, "and so do we." They moved downward together, one level blending into the next, and with each turn the sounds of the docks, voices, movement, the open air, faded further into memory, replaced instead by the low, constant hum of the ship and the echo of footsteps confined within narrowing walls. Tyler ran his hand along the railing as they walked, glancing around with a half-curious, half-skeptical expression. "It feels like we're going underground," he remarked, trying to keep his tone light. "In a way, we are," Ryan answered quietly, his eyes taking in the details, the structure, the spacing, the absence of light, processing everything without needing to say more. Another turn brought them into a corridor that was noticeably tighter, with a lower ceiling and fewer people passing through, the air slightly cooler and stiller, as though this part of the ship existed apart from everything above. Connor's energy dimmed just enough to match the space. "Are we still on the ship?" he asked, half serious. Tyler smirked faintly, unable to resist. "No, we've left it entirely." Connor frowned immediately. "That's not funny." Cory didn't turn, but his voice cut in, calm and firm. "Enough." They continued down the corridor until Cory stopped at a wall marked with deck information, his eyes scanning quickly before settling. "G deck," he said. "We're close." From there, the hallway stretched out in a long, uniform line of identical doors, each marked with numbers, each giving nothing away about what lay behind them, while the lamps along the wall cast a steady but artificial light that made it clear there would be no windows here. Ryan noticed it first, as he often did. "There's no natural light down here," he said, more as an observation than a complaint. "No," Cory confirmed. Tyler glanced around, his earlier confidence softening slightly into something more reflective. "It feels smaller," he admitted. Cory moved forward, checking each door carefully, his pace slowing just enough to ensure they did not pass their own. "G32, he murmured, continuing on. Then his eyes shifted farther ahead. "G38. He stopped a moment later and glanced beside it. "G36, he stopped. For a brief moment, the four of them stood there without speaking, as if the door in front of them marked more than just a cabin, but a threshold into something new and uncertain. Then Cory reached out, turned the handle, and pushed the door open. The room inside was exactly what it needed to be, and nothing more. Small, enclosed, functional. 2 sets of bunk beds lined the walls, a wash basin stood neatly in place, and every inch of space seemed carefully measured, leaving no room for excess and very little room for movement. Connor stepped in first, his reaction immediate and unfiltered. "Oh," Tyler followed, looking around with a raised brow before letting out a quiet breath. "Well," he said, "we're certainly not going to lose each other in here." Ryan entered more slowly, taking everything in without comment, his eyes moving across the room as though committing it to memory, while Cory stepped in last and closed the door behind them, the sound settling into the space in a way that made the room feel even smaller. For a moment, none of them moved. 4 brothers, 1 room, no space to hide from each other. Connor broke the stillness first, stepping toward one of the lower bunks and pressing down on it with both hands. "It's soft," he said, almost surprised. "That's something," Tyler replied, dropping his bag onto the opposite bed and sitting down with a slight bounce to test it. Ryan quietly chose his place without needing to discuss it, setting his book down near the wall and sitting with the same calm certainty he approached everything else with. Cory remained standing a moment longer, his eyes moving across the room, not judging, not complaining, but measuring, adjusting, accepting. 4 beds, 1 space, it would work, Tyler noticed him and, for once, spoke without teasing. "It's fine," he said. "We've had worse." Cory gave a small nod. "Yes." Connor had already climbed onto a bunk, testing it with complete trust. "Can I have this one?" he asked. "Yes," Cory answered immediately. "Good." Tyler pointed upward toward the bunk above him. "Then I'll take that one, safer distance in case you decide to fall." "I won't fall." "You absolutely will." "I won't." Ryan, without looking up, added quietly, "Statistically, you might." Connor frowned. I won't. It's still possible, Ryan said. Cory stepped in before it continued. Enough. Beds are decided. Simple. Final. Connor swung his legs slightly as he sat, then looked around again, his earlier excitement softening into something more thoughtful. It's small, he said. Yes, Cory replied. Connor considered that for a moment longer, then added, with quiet certainty, but we're all here. That was enough. Tyler leaned back against his bunk, exhaling. Could be worse, he said. At least they didn't split us up. Ryan glanced once more around the room. It's temporary, he said. Cory finally sat down. Yes, he agreed. The ship hummed faintly around them now, a deep, steady presence beneath everything, unfamiliar but constant, as if reminding them that they were no longer on land and would not be again for some time. Connor lay back, staring up at the ceiling. Tell me when it starts moving, he said. I will, Tyler replied. Cory looked at them all, each adjusting in their own way, each carrying something different into this small space. Different, but together, far below the deck, in cabin G36, that was enough.